yesterday change what the bye week feels like or should feel like, what it should be about for your players?
Yeah, I think right now it changes it a lot, because you've got that, disappointing feeling of, not accomplishing what we felt like we were supposed to yesterday, and something that you have to live with and deal with. And unfortunately, you got to kind of sit on this a little bit longer than what you'd like, but, you can't allow it to linger too long. You got to be able to look at the film today, kind of just be able to take a deep breath, get away, and then really be able to look closely at ourselves and make sure that we're making any necessary adjustments for the second half of the season, and knowing that we still have everything out in front of us. But yesterday was disappointing for sure.
Do you give the team a message going into a bye week, and was this one any different than normal?
Yeah. I mean, today was a standard Monday for us where we look at the film, we address it. The difference is that, the guys will come in, we'll do a little something with them on Wednesday, and then you're mandated to give them off Thursday through Sunday, just based on, what the, just standard operating procedures are as far as for a bye week. But you want to make sure that we're smart as far as just handling things, especially with the uptick and some people just getting COVID around the league, and understanding what those circumstances can entail if we're not smart about that. And then let's come back refreshed, recharged, and ready to go against a great Seattle opponent coming off of this thing.
Thanks. Great. Hey, Sean, just real quick, how are Jalen Ramsey and Darrell Henderson doing? And did you pick up any other injuries that you didn't know about yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, guys got a little bit banged up, Greg, but nothing of note. Darrell, he's good. His quad was bothering him. If we were to practice this week, it'd probably be later on in the week until he's able to go. Don't expect it to linger into Seattle. And then Jalen was in the building. He's feeling better, and that's a positive sign for us.
Lindsay?
Sean, I'm just wondering, now that you guys are basically the midpoint of the season, if you can kind of just break down how you feel you guys are doing on offense, defense, and special teams. Yeah,
so I think defense has been pretty playing at a pretty high level consistently throughout the season. I've been very pleased with them. Especially each of the last few weeks. They've definitely played at a really high level. I think we're really getting very comfortable with some of the nuances of the newer things that we're doing, but you're really starting to see some of our players shine, and they've done an excellent job. I've been very pleased with them. I think offensively, it's been up and down. Yesterday, obviously being as fresh as it is, it was such a weird game where it's a lot of positives on some of the early downs, and really what it boiled down to is our inability to be able to consistently handle when they were bringing some of their zero pressures like I talked about after the game yesterday. And that's what it boiled down to. And you give them credit. They did a nice job, but 3 of our 4 turnovers came on that. And they, in essence, got 21 of their 28 points off of those turnovers based on the short fields where they score a touchdown. One of those drives ends up starting on the on the 1 yard line, and then the other one on the 33, which was their longest offensive drive that led to points, for the Dolphins offense yesterday. All of which resulted in turnovers from the offense, given the Dolphins offense short fields. And we've got to be better. It's something that we'll look at and we'll be able to address moving forward. But that's the beauty of this game, is you got to be able to address it. You got to be able to move forward. But I think it's been. We've run the football efficiently, Lindsay, and then I think there's been some good and some bad. But I'd say overall, not consistent enough for the standards that we have. And thought teams has been steadily improving. And unfortunately, yesterday I thought we took a step, in the wrong direction. Based on how I thought Chicago was by far and away our best performance this season. We covered really well, and we knew we were going to have to do the same thing against Jakeem Grant, a really dangerous returner, and we didn't do that. And it's a great challenge for us to really be able to focus on coming off of the bye, but it's kind of where I see us right now.
And then just with the kicking situation, is Kai Forbath the guy going forward still, or is Austin McGinnis going to get a chance to maybe compete for that spot?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it was disappointing, to see the result in the one, field goal that we attempted to try to cut it to a 1-possession game. Mishit that. I do think you want to still demonstrate a little bit of a patience, understanding that one kick, that was big, it didn't help us yesterday, but I think you want to give a guy a chance to continue to compete and evaluate. And with that small, that small inventory that we had from yesterday, we'll continue to evaluate both of those guys. And, Kai will remain in that role right now.
Jordan. Hey, Sean. Yesterday and then a couple of times throughout the season, you'd mentioned that you'd like to look inwardly and progress in that manner and self-scout and things like that. Where is that process for you in terms of specifics? What you liked about what you've done so far, and then where you think you'd like to do things differently?
Yeah, I think it always is about just, the reflection on, every decision and every situation, whether it's, how you are as a head coach or how you are, specific to calling plays. Are you putting guys in situations to have success is the number one thing. And are we having answers, and are we giving guys clarity with the answers that we have based on what the defense can activate or based on what our opponent activates, and how we stay in alignment with winning the football game as a team. And overall yesterday, the thing that I would say that I want to make sure that I do a better job of is continuing, which I think we've done fairly well this season, is recognizing what's the best way and best formula to win those games as a team. And in some instances, some of those situations, based on some of the checks and things they activated, we left ourselves susceptible to making mistakes that I think enabled them to be able to ultimately win that football game. I think that is on me, but I also think the players have a responsibility in being able to execute and handle those situations better as well. So everything that we do is always about a collaboration, and we're in it together, but that's kind of how I evaluate. But there's a shared responsibility amongst everyone, and that's players and coaches alike.
And then this is kind of random, but when you guys went back over the film yesterday, was there any concern at all about the batted balls in terms of, I know we've talked forever about kick trajectory, but in terms of trajectory as the ball's coming out of the hand, was there any concern about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you always evaluate that, Jordan. In a lot of instances, sometimes it's those quicker element throws, whether you're underneath the center and that rush is a little bit closer to Jared. And, he's always a taller guy, but you really throw through windows, not over windows. And so I think that's a combination. Each play, you hear me say it over and over, each play is kind of its own entity. And so there's some that I think we can do a good job of negotiating. And then there's other instances where you're saying, all right, let's get those guys hands down and create a free lane. So that's part of it. It's part of our overall execution. We always want to do a great job in that. But credit to the Dolphins. They did a good job of being able to get their hands up and get their hands on some of those balls.
And sorry, I'm so sorry. But does that happen with your eyes as a quarterback? Does that happen with a pump? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, a lot of times, defensive linemen are really coached well, where based on the depth of the quarterback's drop and how quickly he's ready to set up, if they're not able to work an edge on a guy in front of them immediately, then their next response is, how can you affect the play? And that's by getting your hands up and getting your hand in some of those throwing windows. And typically when you're talking about some of those quicker element pass games, usually they are flat inward breaks where, you're kind of negotiating through some of those windows, specifically on some of those edge players. But I'd say that, it's a credit to them doing a nice job. And then we always want to continue to find ways of making it a clean operation, regardless of the depth of the drop and where those routes are typically designed to be completed.
Gary?
Sean, how would you evaluate Jared's performance overall in the first 8 games, and what do you want to see from him in the last 8? And
yeah, I think in a lot of instances he's done some really good stuff, Gary. Thought, some of the tougher plays that we had yesterday were really tough, and those are things that we've got to improve on. And I think he'll be the first to tell you that he, has to be better, and he will be. And just about consistently stacking good decisions, getting guys involved, being able to navigate and negotiate through some difficult situations that inevitably come up when you play that position. That's the most difficult in the world, in my opinion, in sports and everything that entails. So, overall, there's been some good and there's been some things that I expect them to be better with. But I think that's a reflection of, overall the whole operation offensively. But do expect in some of those situations and circumstances, I trust that we'll see growth. And I know that, his first inkling in response is to look inward. And if you have that approach, then I think we can improve moving forward.
And then looking ahead, I know your focus right now is just on Seattle as your next game, but over the final 8, you're going to play 5 division games. As you look at that kind of in a broad picture, how do you kind of assess, the second half of the schedule for you guys going forward?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, if you're a competitor, I mean, you see some of these teams, it's going to be outstanding for us. And the first thing for us, I mean, I think yesterday is a great example of, you've got to just be totally in the moment, and so many things that you don't expect to happen in this league if you're not kind of just fully present and handling your business in the moment. And unfortunately, we didn't do a good enough job of that yesterday, and that's why we're at 5-3 instead of 6-2. You certainly always give credit to the Dolphins, but for us, like you said, we know what the last 8 games have on the schedule. But if you don't take care of that first game of that 8-game stretch, it really, those other games at the back half of the schedule don't become as relevant or as meaningful. And so we know what kind of challenge the Seattle Seahawks will bring when they come here, and we have tremendous amount of respect for them and familiarity, and we're looking forward to getting an opportunity to compete to go get our 6th.
Thank you.
Robert,
can you hear me?
I got you.
Got you this time.
Perfect. All right. This time worked. So, Sean, when you guys and other teams started using a lot of jet motion in 2017, it felt like a way to get the ball on the perimeter and displace linebackers in the run game more than anything else. Recently, though, it feels like you guys and other teams are increasingly using it in the passing game as a way to either mess with 3x1s and 2x2s or number counts right before the snap. I'm just curious, when and how did you guys realize how valuable a tool that action could be in the passing game?
Yeah, I think it's an accumulation of, you're always looking at yourself, Robert, and figuring out ways to change the math. I mean, it's 11 on 11, but I think the best teams week in and week out, whether it's offensively or defensively, do a great job of changing up the math and the numbers. And in a lot of instances, based on the tempo at which that motion hits, you are able to change the leverage and some of the math based on, like you mentioned, 2x2, 3x1, changing, some of the passing strengths and what that forces defenses to adjust to based on what kind of coverage contours they're in on the back end, and whether you want to try to use it as an advantage in the run game or in the pass game. And it's just kind of been something that's evolved. I know we weren't the first people to ever do it, but it's something that as you're looking and you're saying, you watch around the league or you just watch football in general, you're saying, does that fit in our system and how we want to really utilize our personnel? And it's been something that has been increasingly utilized in our passing game, like you mentioned. It's been kind of similar, though, where we, a couple of years ago, we were using it really in both phases pretty evenly for all those things that you mentioned. But some of the timing of the snap points, not exclusive to just right before the quarterback, I think is something that's been a little bit different that we've utilized. And then, whether you want to run plays to or away from it is something that we try to be cognizant of as well from a self-scout. And I think that's something in increase.